Good afternoon, 6-4 Owl parents. Mr. Hagedorn here with our weekly update. No new announcements this week. Next week's just a normal 5-day week. In Math 6 next week, we just finished up learning how to divide fractions today. Next week, we're going to look at that same skill, but we're going to look at it in word problems. And then we're going to do one of the hardest skills we'll probably do all year, which is finding how many non-unit cubes fit into a rectangular prism. So we're talking about cubes that have like a side length of 1/2 or 1/4, and how many of those we could fit into a random size rectangular prism. That can be real challenging for kids. So we're going to spend several days next week on that. All right. Math 6 Plus, we did our Unit 6 study guide number 2 today, so we'll have that quiz on Monday. Study guide is also due on Monday. And then we'll move on to our second 7th grade unit, which is going to be very similar to Unit 2 and Unit 3 we did earlier in the year. We're going to go back and talk about ratios and proportions and percentages and all that fun stuff. So that will be next week. Have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday.
Hey, 6-4 families, just hearing that math update makes me realize why I love teaching science and not math, because that does not sound fun at all. This past week, we focused on plate tectonics and plate boundaries in particular. We started off the week talking about Wegener's theory of continental drift, and we learned about the fossil records into how that worked. Then we did a little Oreo activity. Thanks again for the parent donations. And that got us to today, where next week, kids are going to be working with a partner, drawing a famous landform made by one of the major plate boundaries, and they're going to be doing some research on that. But then we're going to spend some days late next week, and we're going to do a little bit of self-assessment, which means kids are going to be grading themselves. Then they're going to pair up with another group and be a little critical of another group, and not in a bad way, but they're going to be looking at another kid's project and giving them feedback. And then the groups are going to be able to use that feedback to finalize their project before submitting. So we're going to be doing a little self and peer assessment with famous landforms created by land boundaries. Other than that, the weekend looks like it's starting to stay dry, right? Staying dry?
I think so.
If it's not dry, I'm going to be very sad. Okay.
All right, friends. Thanks for coming, those of you who made it to our little celebration this morning. That was a lot of fun. We will do that
Thanks
again.
for coming.
Yeah, thanks. We'll do that again at the end of the year, and it will be a longer and more hands-on activity that we'll be doing. So in language arts, we're going to continue reading our new novel, Flush. We're 3 chapters in at this point. We'll continue with 4 or 5, continue on. Our main focus is our point of view, so understanding what the main character's point of view is and also what the author's point of view is. We'll be looking at some figurative language and connotative language, as well as doing some, like we did today, some reading comprehension quizzes. So reading a chapter and answering some questions, some comp questions. We want to practice that skill of reading and finding the answer, especially in this case when the answer is most likely right there in the text. You can put your finger on what Lice Peking's real name is, that kind of question. So that's what we're going to continue on. Yes, Charles. That's what we're going to continue on in language arts. In social studies class, we're really close to our unit, end of our unit on politics and ancient laws. We started just briefly talking about the Magna Carta, King John, and that kind of story today. We're going to continue that on Monday. And as we finish that, we're going to then move into our unit on economics, which is about a month-long unit where we'll be looking at basics of economics. So we'll be looking at some real simple goods versus services, kinds of understanding what are the different types of resources that we have, capital resources, natural resources, human resources. Then we talk a little bit about the different economic styles that you might have seen throughout history, from communism to forced and traditional economies. Those types of things we'll be carrying on. We'll also be doing some historic economic things like Silk Road and trade and those kinds of things around the Mediterranean. So it's kind of a fun unit, and that's what we will start on Monday at the back side of class and then carry it on through the next couple of weeks. So if you have any questions, please let us know. If not, have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next week.